Hello. Just thought I'd try something new. Just because, really. I've been thinking about alder trees a lot lately, and quite often find them on riverbanks, sort of holding the land together. And they're beautiful trees. The only broadleaf tree that has little cones on it. The other fascinating thing about it is when you cut the wood, it turns red. So the Celts often held this in high esteem. Thinking it was obviously the sacred colour red, and obviously connected to the spirits of the tree. And thinking upon that theme, I was just flicking through this book that I bought on my last trip to Swanage. I just saw it there on the shelf and thought, make a nice addition to the bookshelf. And in it, as I was flicking through, I found this little story that I'm going to read. It's called The Alder Sprite. Tam lived in a cottage near a very special well called the Saint's Well. All the water he ever needed came from this well. Tam knew how lucky he was to live next to such a wonderful source of water. It was the clearest, purest water in the whole valley. In fact, many folk said it was the best water in the whole of Somerset. Even on a hot summer's day, it stayed cool and untainted. Tam used the well like a larder, keeping his butter, cheese, and even his salt bacon in a bucket down in the well. He was one of the few people in the village whose pork was still fresh enough to eat in the winter, safely preserved in the dark gold well. Each year, Tam ate juicy pork with crispy crackling for his Christmas dinner, a rare treat in those days before refrigeration, and all thanks to the special Saint's Well. An alder tree grew next to the well. It had been there as long as Tam could remember. One summer, when its leaves were full and bright green, he noticed that one of the tree's lower branches was growing right across the mouth of the well, making it harder for Tam to draw the water up in his bucket. He muttered and grumbled about the encroaching limb, but Tam knew full well that it was very unwise to cut an alder. None of the old folk in the valley would ever prune such a sacred tree. Rumour had it that the tree would bleed if cut, and awful things would happen to the person that harmed it. As summer ended and autumn turned the land from green to gold, the leaves began to drop down into the water. Tam swore that the falling leaves were causing the water to taste sour. Finally, he decided to cut off the limb. Surely chopping one branch wouldn't offend any spirits, he thought to himself. He took his axe, sharpened the blade, and began to chop at the branch. To Tam's surprise, a loud moan escaped from the branches above his head. He stopped and looked up into the tree's canopy. He was horrified to see wood smoke swirling through the leaves. He turned to his house. He hadn't lit a fire today. He ran up the path just to make sure that his house was all right, and when he got to his property, all was fine. No smoke, no fire. It must have been his imagination. Tam returned to his job, chopping off the low branch above his precious well. As he raised his axe high and brought it down forcefully into the bark, there came an even louder cry from the very heart of the tree. Now Tam heard fire crackling and even caught a whiff of the unmistakable smell of burning. Again he dropped his axe and ran to his cottage, terrified that somehow his thatch and timbers were alight. But no. Once he got there, everything was fine. The cottage was standing as it should be. No fire or burning timbers. Right, Tam said angrily. I'm being tricked by some spirit here, or else I'm losing my mind. Anyway, I'm going to not pay attention any more of this nonsense or witchery. He went back to the well, picked up the axe, and chopped at the branch for all he was worth. Each time the blade struck into the wood, a piercing scream rang out. With each blow of the axe, the terrified tree spirit cried louder and louder. Tam heard the cries of pain and smelled the wood smoke. He heard the flames beginning to leap and rise, crackling and hissing as the fire began to rage behind him. Oh no, you're not fooling me again. I'm not playing any mind to your trickery. I'm just going to take this limb off, and that's that. Despite the sound, the smell, and now heat of a raging house fire, Tam kept on with his task until the long, leafy branch lay on the ground, severed from the body of the tree. Tam picked up his prize with pride. It was a good, solid piece of wood, and Tam smiled to himself as he thought how well it would burn in his hearth tonight. But as he turned to take up his log pile, he saw red-faced neighbours and villagers running towards his cottage. Fire! Fire! They yelled, as more villagers came running with buckets of water to put out the blaze. Tam reached his house too late. This time the flames were real. The whole place was ablaze. There was nothing Tam or his neighbours could do to stop the fire from destroying his home. A very sorry Tam sat down in the dirt, still holding the older branch, and sobbed. A kindly lady gave him a mug of water from the well, and when he could talk, he told the villagers about the visions the tree spirit had given him and how he had foolishly ignored them. The local folk looked on in pity, but all agreed the older sprite had given him fair warning, and poor Tam had got what he deserved. A short story. Yeah, and poor old Tam, maybe. But then maybe he shouldn't have angered the sprite. There we go. Hope you enjoyed that. And if I find some other short folk tales that relate to trees in any way, I might read those and stick them up too. Have a great evening, and anyway, cheers.